Well, welcome to our webinar on health and how to get the most of our health and fitness and well-being and all of that good stuff. So we are joined by Dr. Sara Kayat, who is someone you will probably know from lifting a dumbbell next to or a barbell or something, usually on a Sunday morning, or you will have seen her on our good televisions on this morning answering all the questions around health and fitness. So thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. We're really excited about this, and of course we've got Amy and Katie as well as my good self. So we've got half an hour to talk about everything that is so important about health. And we're going to do that with a number of questions that we've been given. Some questions have been given by our challengers and some that we think are important for today's world of health and fitness. So we've put this under the caption of debunking diet facts based on evidence. So, Sara, that is our, our sort of a quote tagline, if you like. And so we're going to be talking about questions around all of that. So are we ready to go?
Yep.
Whoop, whoop. Good stuff. All right. So firstly, we all go to the supermarket. We do our shopping on a daily, weekly basis. We try and plan it. But at the end of the day, it all depends on how we feel on the day. And I've always heard, the best thing is to not go food shopping when you're hungry. So, that's when your decisions will start to waver and you want to, you might make poor decisions. And I put that in inverted commas. So there's so much claim on these products and food around what's good for you, how it makes you feel, what you should eat, shouldn't eat, and how it's going to fix your weight loss issues, going to live longer, look younger, right? That's what they're telling us whenever we walk into these supermarkets. What are your thoughts on this, and how can you advise us to better choose and make that experience better for us?
I do think the health industry, the food industry, the fitness industry is an overwhelming landscape. There are endless diets, superfoods, claims, and with all of these, I think it's so crucial to stay grounded in evidence-based medicine. There are no quick fixes. There are no miraculous products. And all those kind of restrictive or fad diets at best might give you temporary results, but at worst can result in things like nutrient deficits and illness. So I think it's all about going back to basics, remembering that things like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes have all been supported by evidence-based research as being beneficial for our overall health. So, just go back to those basics. Anytime that you see that advert coming at you for this protein bar, or every time you see a weight loss tablet, remember the basics and where the evidence really sits. And that is in good, healthy foods.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily in the box. I think that's the issue. I mean, that's a whole ultra processed food. That's a whole, webinar meeting in itself, isn't it? I mean, it is confusing. But if it's in a box or in a packet, what would you say? Read the label.
Yeah, look, reading the label is really helpful. I think in general terms, I say read the label. If there are lots of ingredients there that you don't know or you wouldn't find in your grandma's cupboard, it's probably highly processed. I don't want to be too, militant about this processed food issue, because, people are stopping eating bread, and bread is kind of part of our bread and butter. And it has got some benefits. Whole grain bread is great in terms of energy, in terms of some have seeds, in terms that are better than others, but don't annul everything just because we've now read a book that says we're not allowed to eat processed foods. Take it with a pinch of salt and try and find ingredients that you recognize on the back of the packet.
Balance by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot, thank you for that. There's been so much talk about blood sugar levels, our blood sugar spiking, our insulin resistance, pre-diabetic, all of that. And we've got Zoe, we've got all sorts of monitoring tools. We've got Instagram telling us what to do and what not to do. What's your views on monitoring your blood sugar? And as well as that, while we're on the sugar, your views on natural sources, so honey, for example, versus unnatural sources, or processed, if you like, versus sugar substitutes. So there's kind of two questions in that.
Yeah, look, I think in those who are at risk of type 2 diabetes or have type 2 diabetes, that focus in blood sugar levels and insulin resistance does have merit. You know, CGM, so those continuous glucose monitors like Zoe or Hello Lingo, can be really helpful in giving insights to people with diabetes. But for most people, a diet low in processed foods, added sugars, refined carbohydrates is usually enough to support our healthy blood sugar levels. I think people are getting a little bit concerned about spikes, but spikes are actually a natural physiological part of our body. It is normal for us to eat oats and then get a spike in our blood sugar levels. The only abnormality is if that spike then doesn't come down, because it means that you're having trouble with your insulin, either the resistance or production of it. And that could be diabetes. But for everyone else out there, that is normal. And so saying, oh, I'm never going to eat oats again because it causes a blood sugar spike is going to be detrimental to you, because everything, well, not everything, but a lot of carbohydrates will cause a sugar spike, and it's normal to have that. So I don't necessarily see the point in the CGMs for people without diabetes and without, or at least not at risk of diabetes. In terms of the natural sugars versus other sugars, I mean, natural sugars, you're thinking things like, as you say, in fruit, in honey, and they have their own benefits, nutritional benefits, you know. And so, yes, if you are going to make a cake, it would be great if you could maybe make the cake with fruit or honey rather than processed sugar, because you may get the added benefits of the nutrients from those fruits. But ultimately, the body still metabolizes that sugar in similar ways. So you're not going to be getting away with not eating it's not that you're not eating a sugar when you eat the sugar in the form of honey. You still are having a sugar, but there may be additional benefits. And especially in things like fruit, it's quite useful because you've got the added benefits of the fiber that comes along with it. And the fiber will help reduce that glucose spike, whereas refined sugars will do this quick glucose spike, and that can then promote insulin resistance over time. So yes, I think if you can do the swaps, great, do them, but don't expect your body not to be breaking it down in the same way.
So my takeaway on that, you know, on the monitors is, if you don't need it, then it's a bit like, and we'll come on to talk about calories versus macros. It's a bit like, do you need to measure something on a day-to-day basis rather than look at it on a balance and just live, you know, and think about the basics, as you say. So that's really good advice. And then the other being the sugar itself is the same in terms of how it's processed, but if you use natural, as in fruit, as you say, you get the extra benefits of the fiber, etc. So it's kind of like the sugar itself is the same, the underlying product, but the where it comes from, what it's doing, is giving you something extra. So that's really helpful. That's good. I can see the girls have moved to the toilets, which is great. So talk to us about calories and macros.
Yeah, so
no, not you, Sara, sorry.
you know, sort of historically, when people are looking to lose weight, you've always had this equation of obviously calories in versus calories out, and as simple as that. So working in a deficit. But now you're hearing more and more that it's all about looking at your macros and, you know, more heavier intake of protein and that kind of thing. So just wanted to find out what your thoughts were on that, and whether we should be following one system or the other in terms of like deficit, or, you know, creating different sort of portion sizes of your macros.
I think there's merit in both of these equations. So I think for weight loss, fat loss, a slight calorie deficit is still key, but we do know that protein can help maintain the lean muscle while losing fat, and also helps you keep fuller for longer, so aids the process of weight loss and your journey through trying to maintain, you know, portion size and things like that. But whereas for muscle building, you know, the protein intake should be increased alongside resistance training, and I'd say if you are already lean, then actually a calorie surplus is probably required in order to try and maintain the weight whilst building muscle. So it's a matter of a little bit of both. I think it's also important not to obsess too much over macros. I think people are pretty obsessed by protein and trying to find protein in protein bars and protein glass of milk, and it'll probably have the same amount of protein there. It's just about, as always, that balanced meal with proteins, complex carbohydrates, healthy fats, and all of those things together will help stabilize your blood sugar levels, give you the energy you need, and it's more sustainable to think of it in more of a balanced way, I think, than it would be to think of it in I need to get this exact amount of protein in, or I need to get this exact amount of calorific intake in.
Yeah. Okay.
And then where does like fiber fit?
I guess. Okay, well, yeah, in the UK we are woefully inadequate in our fiber content, which I think is crazy, because actually we have access to so many foods which are high in fiber. We need around 30 grams a day, but some people are getting, you know, not even half of that. We need fiber for our digestion. You know, it helps us with constipation, things like that. It's good for our heart health, but it's also good in stabilizing our blood sugar levels and ensuring that we do manage to stay fuller for longer. But it can be got in, you know, fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts, seeds. Gosh, it's literally everywhere. So I think it's all about just making really simple swaps if you can. Simple, you know, instead of white pasta, brown pasta, you know, white bread, whole grain, wholemeal bread, you know, brown rice, and then just, you know, simple things like adding chia seeds into your smoothies if you know that's what you like. I think just those little simple swaps can just add a whole load of additional benefits, and you don't have to give up the things you like in order to get that. Does
fiber bloat you though? I mean, because a lot of people talking about bloating. Can fiber bloat you? And what other, you know, what else might bloat people and why? Yeah, fiber can cause bloating because of it adds bulk to your stool, which is why we use it to help with constipation. And so some people will notice that bulk initially. I'd say that if you are trying to increase your fiber, you know, maybe do it gradually so that your body catches up with it and is able to process it better. So, you know, do it slowly. In terms of bloating, gosh, there are loads of different causes. I'd say it's always a good idea to see a GP about bloating anyway, because there are some kind of more sinister issues that need to be ruled out with bloating. But when it comes to food, the most common culprits are things like a high sodium diet, so lots of salt in your diet, carbonated drinks, and then high FODMAPs. Now, FODMAPs are essentially fermentable carbs. And people with IBS are often suggested to have a low FODMAP diet. So that's things like beans, onions, garlic, all the things that you think are really healthy, and they are really healthy, but in certain people, they're just unable to tolerate it as well. And those are things that can cause it. So what I'd say is keep a food diary to help identify your specific triggers. And then whilst you're doing that, you know, stay hydrated, chew your food, have natural digestive aids, things like ginger and peppermint oil in your diet to try and help with that bloating. And then
for some people, considering probiotics will also help.
Okay.
Right. And then thinking about caffeine, I know in the past maybe it's mentioned not to have coffee first thing when you wake up, but often it can aid or, you know, not help our cortisol levels. And obviously we're HIIT training, which can often also maybe not benefit our cortisol to the max. So how does caffeine, cortisol levels, how can we help with all of that as well?
Okay, so when we wake up in the morning, our body releases a natural peak of cortisol to give us that get up and go in the morning, you know, just to wake us up, help us with that whole process. Now, drinking caffeine at the same time as your natural cortisol peak will lead to a further increase in your cortisol levels. That in itself can then also lead to higher tolerance of caffeine. So you end up needing to have more caffeine to try and get you the same benefits eventually. And for those that are prone to it, it can lead to that feeling of kind of stress or anxiety. But what I'd say is, if you don't notice those feelings, if you get up and have your coffee and you don't get any problems with it, then I wouldn't worry too much about it. But if you wake up, you have your coffee and actually start feeling anxious, jittery, stressed, then just wait 1 hour after waking up to drink your coffee.
So this is an interesting one, actually, because I mean, everyone's different, obviously, you know, age, you know, what hormonal cycle you're in, gender, etc. And you know, you and I have spoken about this, Sarah, and actually Amy and Katie, about menopause and how much, you know, information there is out there. And this is one of the ones that actually is quite consistently messaged, and it's actually a change I have made. So, and Amy doesn't drink coffee anymore. I mean, I love my coffee. Sorry, when I say coffee, she has a very long. This is what the description of her coffee is, but decaf, right?
Yeah.
I can never remember. I have to go to the coffee shop and say, "Can I have a coffee for Amy?" You know, and they know what it is. But it's decaf. So, but for me, I changed it for green tea in first thing in the morning, and then coffee, enjoy it, you know, a couple of hours later or what have you. And I have to say, I have really, really noticed the change. I don't know whether that change, I can't really vocalize what that change is, but it has really sort of helped. It's almost sort of that gradual, if you like, waking up into the world. And it, you know, as you say, it's not for everyone, but it's actually something that I've quite enjoyed. It also throws into your day that green tea. You know, you're starting with green tea, you're more likely going to have another green tea later on, which, you know, I know not everyone likes green tea, but, you know, peppermint tea or lemongrass or what have you. But I do think these small tweaks, you know, there's so much noise out there in terms of what we shouldn't do, and it's hard to know what works for you. It's just sort of taking 2 or 3 things that might work for you and making those changes. And I think that's amazing. Yeah.
Definitely. I think, and the thing is it may be for you that actually it's the green tea that's benefiting you more rather than necessarily not having the coffee, but it's hard to know. But I mean, coffee in itself has got a myriad of health benefits to it, but interestingly, the studies haven't suggested that it's the caffeine within the coffee. They've all suggested that it's the coffee itself, you know, the antioxidants and phytochemicals within the coffee. So certainly, if you enjoy your coffee, I don't feel like you have to swap it out for something else if you don't enjoy that. But yeah, green tea in itself has got loads of wonderful benefits too. So maybe a little mix of both.
Yeah. And then there's, of course, the mushroom coffee.
Yeah.
So there's, you know, there's lots of different things going on there. Anyway, I digress.
On that note of like mushroom coffee, though, there is so many supplements out there on the market. You know, people are saying we should start taking mushroom coffee or vitamin B or vitamin C, and obviously vitamin D is a big one. You know, we're here in the studio with a lot of people 3 to 4 times a week, maybe more. Winter is upon us. What would your advice be to somebody in the fitness world to try and stay healthy over the winter? Is there supplements that we can take? How would it aid what we're eating as well? Yeah, what's your advice? Because there's just so much out there on every single
There
supplement.
is. Yeah, no, there is. There's so much out there, and people are very confused. I think, look, a healthy diet is the foundation. It always will be, and supplements are there to fill any nutrient gaps. The only one that's an exception there is vitamin D, because we make that from a reaction with the sun on our skin primarily. We can get some from food, but only in small amounts. And obviously from the months of October to March, we have near to no sun. So I recommend 10 micrograms of vitamin D every day. And that will help support bone health, but also it's been implied in immune health and mood regulation. So I'm a big fan of the old vitamin D. The other vitamins, most of the time you can get it from our diet. So, vitamin C, really easy, one orange or a handful of strawberries and you've got your vitamin C for the day. But if there's any reason that you aren't taking in enough vitamin C, then yes, supplements can be appropriate, and it's an antioxidant, so it helps to protect our cells from damage. It's water soluble, so most of the time it ends up being an expensive wee, so you just pee out what you don't need, unless you're having real extreme levels of the stuff. But yeah, most of the time it's just a little expensive wee. Other supplements that can help support you in terms of exercise and things like that, things like magnesium, we know that it supports muscle function. It can help with recovery, relaxation, and also help with sleep quality, which is also associated with your immune function and how well you stay healthy over the winter months. So that's another one. But again, you can get that in loads of foods. It's in green leafy vegetables, it's in meat, seeds, nuts, whole grains, legumes, or chocolate, bananas, literally everything. You can't get away with not having it. So you don't necessarily have to take a supplement, but if you feel like you're not getting enough, then fair enough. Zinc's a good one over the winter as well, because that helps with immune function. There's evidence to suggest that if you take it within 24 hours of a cold starting, that you may be able to limit the severity and duration of that cold. And interestingly, we know that exercise can deplete the zinc levels, especially if you're doing intense exercise. So it may be more relevant to our team. You can get that pretty much in shellfish, red meat, poultry, legumes, seeds, nuts again, but you can get it in supplement form for those times when you're feeling a little bit ill and you think you're gonna come down with something. Then yeah, pop a little zinc. What else? Omega-3. That's important for inflammation, muscle recovery, heart health. And if you've got a diet that's low in fatty, oily fish, which a lot of people don't always like, then supplements can be beneficial.
Omega-3 is an interesting one, because it used to be, the brain food ages ago, and then it sort of went away as being brought up as something to have, and now it's sort of coming back in as an important one. So
yeah, I remember as a kid always having to have cod liver oil and stuff like that. You don't really see people having that anymore.
Yeah. Oh gosh, and those tablets, just hope they don't explode as you're swallowing them.
Yeah.
I have to say that I made yesterday, quite proud of myself, I will share, ginger shots. So I found in the cupboard some little milk bottles that we bought years ago that were like little cutesy things you put little milk in if you had people staying or whatever. Anyway, that's by the by. The reason I'm saying that is that why do I have little ginger shot milk bottles in order to do this? But I did it, and I've put them all in there. I might even take a photo and share with you. And I have to say, I had my first one this morning. It was really nice. It was sort of ginger, lemon, apple, turmeric, pepper. I can't remember I think that's about it. But yeah, so anyway, that's my ginger shot.
I mean, yeah,
goodness in a bottle, isn't it?
Well, this is nice. The National Institute of Clinical Excellence have suggested that instead of having any cough syrups and stuff like that from the pharmacy, if you do get ill, that they've actually written it in there that honey, lemon, ginger is equally as efficacious as those medicines. So you're doing the right thing.
Got to share the recipe. Send it out to everyone.
I'll share it, and you know, this might be new business. Who knows? Ginger shots. It was very messy, and there was a comment from the kitchen when Laura said, "What have you done?" Everything was orange.
I love ginger shots. It's got to be good and strong, really strong.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Almost makes your eyes water.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there was something else we wanted to ask you as well about the fact that out there, you know, well, we touched on it quite a lot. There's so much information out there at the moment. You know, obviously it's a good and a bad thing in a way, because, you know, it's great to have all this information, but it's coming at you from every angle, and, you know, sort of do this, don't do that. You know, all of the social media sort of like just bombarding you with all of this advice. What are your sort of principles and your philosophy in terms of sort of health and vitality that could maybe help our members, you know, reach their goals as well, so they can kind of bring that into their own, to themselves?
I think it's always about focusing on long-term sustainable habits, you know, reminding yourself there aren't any quick fixes, prioritizing your whole foods, your, you know, moderating portions, listening to your body, you know, listening to your body's cues for hunger, eating mindfully, as well as regular physical activity, obviously. But, you know, finding a way of eating that feels right for you. You know, it won't look the same as everybody else, but that's okay. So, you know, just find a way of getting through all of the challenges that work for you, and do it in a nice, slow and steady way.
Yeah. So much, you know, in the past there's been so much sort of restriction and cutting things out, and you know, sometimes that might work for some people in the short term, but more often than not it doesn't, and you just sort of bounce back. And we you know, we experienced that in the past. So yeah, I think it's, you know, everyone needs to find out their own path and their own journey.
Definitely. For sure, making your own way through it is so important. And I think most people, certainly, you know, people at F45, they're all there because they want to make a sustainable change to their lives, and so I think we've kind of self-selected a good group of people that actually do want to do this the right way, rather than kind of yo-yoing and finding it a more mental. It's, you know, getting fit and healthy is supposed to be beneficial for your mental health. Yeah. But when you do it in quick yo-yoing ways, it does the exact opposite. And I never want people to feel that healthy is the stressful side of things. It's meant to be the good, positive, wonderful way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also that dovetails nicely into, you know, people exercise, and why do they exercise? And in the old days, as Amy was saying, it used to be around, you know, calories in, calories out, and burning calories, etc. Now it's about how does it make you feel. And we talk a lot in the studio about, you know, what's your why do you exercise, or why do you do certain things? And it's how it makes you feel, not necessarily how you look, or it's how it makes you feel. And the same with food, you know, and you know, we didn't even touch on alcohol and drinking, but we don't have time for that. It's a whole other podcast. But again, that comes into the same, you know, how do foods make you feel? And if they make you feel good, then eat more of them. If they don't, then they're not. So, you know, after a big meal that, you know, is perhaps not as balanced, shall we say, you'll probably not feel great. So note that, so that when you go to eat it again, whether that feeling afterwards is going to make you, entice you to actually eat it again. It's how does it make you feel, I think is a good barometer of whether you should or shouldn't eat it in greater than moderation, shall we say.
Listen to your body, for sure. Listen to it. It's telling you all the right things.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so very much. This has been really useful, and we really appreciate it. And it's we'll let you know how what people's thoughts are, but I'm sure they'll be absolutely grateful and really appreciate your time. And thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Bye.